Hey guys, welcome back to the Fast Lane Podcast. I'm your host Zach Buchanan. Joining me as always, my co-host Andrew Odom, Brenden. Say hi guys. What's up?
How you guys
How's it
doing
going?
today?
Yeah, we got the Downforce Digital boys today. Also, we've got a guest. We've got our first guest today. This is insane. I'm actually super excited about this. Ryan Bjerke is here. Ryan, what's up, man?
What's up, guys? Glad to be on the podcast.
Yeah, it's good to
I
have you on
appreciate you
too.
being here. See, Ryan, you are you're a mechanical engineering major, correct?
Yes, sir.
At St. Louis University. Um, you started out in karts, and actually, your interest in racing came before that. Your dad has actually been heavily involved in motorsports for a long time. So, tell me a little bit about that.
So my dad, he it all kind of started. Motorsports in my family literally goes back to the first Indy 500. My great grandfather was mechanic on one of the cars there, and the drive towards auto racing had it was kind of ingrained into all of my dad's brothers, including himself. And our family team kind of started with my uncle, who was racing in Can-Am, like back when it was super dangerous. And he wasn't very good, so my grandpa cut the budget on that, and my grandpa didn't think my dad was going to be any good, so my dad was like, screw it, I'm going to build my own cars. And my dad raced in the IMSA Firehawk series for a long time, did a bunch of IMSA stuff. He won the 6 hours at the Glen, and then after his career was over, he was an engineer in Indy Lights, and then eventually Champ Car.
And if I remember correctly, you said he worked for Dale Coyne, correct?
Swift, not like he sent a lot of like a lot of their stuff was through Dale Coyne, because at the time Dale Coyne ran Swifts, but he worked for the factory team.
Yeah, because Swift, I'm trying to think, Swift was with Newman Haas, and at one point John Della Penna's team, and then obviously Coyne too. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then your dad also almost had the opportunity to race Daytona. Is that right? 24 hours?
Yep. Yeah, he was going to do the 24-hour race, and it's a classic story of his bum knee. He was playing he was in Florida playing volleyball with his sponsors and tore his ACL and his MCL 3 weeks before the race, and was out for 2 years, because that was back when when they weren't able to do the groundbreaking surgeries that they're able to do now. So he missed out on the Daytona 24, and it kind of sucked because the team that he was going to drive for ended up winning the Daytona 24.
No way.
Not overall, but in class.
See, what year was this? Like 90, 91, I think you said?
Yeah, around that time.
Yeah. That's insane. Your dad could have had a Rolex.
Yeah, he could have.
Does he have a Rolex? Did he buy one?
No, he's a tag man now. We all, my whole family, because Formula One went to tag, we all have our tag watches.
Dude, I'm jealous.
And you gotta be a Formula One driver now, dude.
Man, hopefully, maybe one day. Got to get some sponsorship.
Right. So you got into karting. How old were you when you started karting?
I was 7. My dad actually never wanted me to race at all, because he had gone through it all. He had seen how awful the business can be, and he was a big force to get me away from it. Eventually, my ADHD looking ass decided to force him into taking me to a go-kart track, because a bunch of the parents were tired of hearing me talk about racing and had no outlet for it. So my dad took me to the go-kart track, and it's kind of where we went from there. We won a whole bunch of races in karting, but then we moved up to cars. Cost a little bit more money, and we were still able to win there pretty well too.
So in karts, kind of give us an idea. What all did you race from? So you were 7, so I'm guessing you were in kid karts first, starting out.
No, I actually jumped straight into junior rookie 1, which was the Yamaha can class.
Okay. So you eventually ended up running some national stuff, right? What all did you do there? What all did you race in?
I raced junior sportsman can, junior can, senior can, and my big claim to fame was the Rotax Max series. I won the national championship in Mini Max in 2010, was runner up in 2009, And after I won a couple Pan Americans in 2011 in junior Rotax, but after that we kind of stopped going for championships because by that point we were looking towards going to cars, so there was no point in spending a huge amount of money on karts when we knew we were going to the next step. So
Makes sense. And let's see. You said you became the youngest driver to obtain their SCCA license at age 14, right?
yeah, at 14 at the time I was the youngest. There's been a couple of kids who beat me now, and you got Nico Christodoulou who races in or Christodoulou who races in USF 2000 in F4 and all that stuff, and he beat me by a whole year. But at the time, I was the youngest to have gotten it since Andy Lally, and it was kind of a cool experience. Hated those Skip Barber cars though; they drove me nuts. Yeah.
That's crazy. That's awesome though. And so after that, you got your license, and then you moved into Formula Ford 1600s. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And where all did you compete in that? You said you raced regional first. And you kind of built upon that. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I did a few of the FRP F1600 pro races my rookie year into cars, but most of the time I spent doing regional and major races in New England, which is because I'm from outside of Boston, and won a whole bunch around there. Ended up winning the Northeast Championship, and then the year after that, we started to take the Pro Series a bit more seriously. Did pretty well. We had a whole bunch of top 10s and top 5s, and then at the time I was going to get picked up by Exclusive Autosport to go through their ladder into the Road to Indy Series and all that stuff. And that deal kind of fell through, holding my tongue a little bit. But I pretty much it stagnated for 2016. I went back to my dad's team, just did a couple one-off races there, but then I got picked up to go race in the Formula Ford Australian Series. So I moved to Australia in my senior year of high school and was over there racing.
Wow, what an experience that is.
Now, yeah,
it was awesome.
I've heard some stories of that. So
no karting stories, really?
No, not at all.
Not me.
So Exclusive. Now you tested for them, I believe, didn't you?
I raced for them. I did a couple races for them, but having a dad as an engineer and a mechanic and knowing every in and out of a race car, it's kind of hard when you're on a team that doesn't have that level of experience, but your dad's watching everything. And my dad found some stuff with their cars that it made it not worth spending the money. And it kind of came down to the money factor. Like they were cutting us a massive deal. Like we were going to be able to progress, and if we won, we weren't going to have to do anything. It was basically a scholarship, but I was getting paid. I was able to do everything, but not quite exactly like what Ignite just posted. But it ended up falling through, in my opinion, a bit for the better. I don't think the relationship would have lasted very well. Just conflicting ideas on how to run stuff from my dad to their team owner and their engineers and mechanics. So, and even from my perspective, it didn't quite feel like home, especially being in a family team for so long. But I ended up being able to find a family team that felt like home shortly after that. Like when I went over to Australia, those guys made me feel like I was part of their family, and then the teams that I drove for once I came back to the States as well.
So following the timeline here, when did you end up at SLU, and how did you end up getting involved with Indy Pro 2000 and D-Force Racing?
So I went to the SLU was like my number one school. I had a choice to either go race in Europe or stay here in the States and go to school and make sure that my plan B, which is to be an engineer in IndyCar, IMSA, or whatever, would go through. And my sophomore year here at SLU, I'm a senior now, D-Force contacted me to test their USF 2000 car at the Chris Griffiths test, which of course I took the opportunity and I tested the car and was pretty quick. At that point, you just run into the money factor if you just can't afford to run that stuff. And to run for D-Force, which is one of the top teams, and I love those guys, but to run for them, it was $300 something thousand to be able to run for them. And I don't know about you, but I don't have $300,000.
I don't. I definitely don't.
Got $300,000 of debt though. Thank you, SLU. But but
Isn't
yeah,
that funny how that works out?
yeah, love SLU. I do.
Hey,
but
at the
same time.
I'm not trying to flex or anything, but I haven't ran into any college tuition debt yet. So
I'm trying to.
I still got 2 years left, so that's not really saying anything.
but yeah. So from that point, I had been bouncing around between Road to Indy teams, testing cars, and Legacy Autosport. I coached a bunch there, and a couple different teams, and then eventually, D-Force had contacted me to start to be a mechanic with them, and stuff like that. And we are kind of rekindled a bit of the relationship. It was a great time. Got to be around the cars and all that stuff. So
you ended up at TRD at some point, if I remember correctly. Run their simulator. How did that happen? How did that work?
So that also I just sent my resume out to because I wanted an internship for the summer. And I'm big into chassis development and stuff. So of course I sent it over to TRD because at the time they were supporting the the Vassar Sullivan Lexus car with Townsend Bell and all of them. And when it was AIM Vassar Sullivan, my dad had known the guy who was the owner of AIM, Ian Willis, and Ian. When I was a little kid, gave me baby clothes and all that stuff. So I had a bit of a draw to go there. I sent in my resume and stuff, and got the internship, which was shocking to me because I had a 1.7 GPA at the time. I'd really screwed off to go racing. But they gave me the opportunity because of my experience, and I was able to work with those guys on 8-post testing, and eventually got to hop in the simulator and whooped up on the NASCAR boys a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and see, I remember you telling me a story about Christopher Bell. Which is ironic because Christopher Bell just won his first Cup race. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that story, though. I don't know if we should really tell that story or not.
He's changed a lot for the better.
Really?
And considering he won on a road course.
Yeah.
And it's just the typical racer thing. I know a lot of guys come from money, and a lot of guys have a different way of looking at it. And especially the top dogs, they have a very different outlook to how they came to racing. And he came from money, and I didn't. So there's a bit of and you can tell how they act and how they drive and how they work with the engineers and stuff. What kind of how they've been able to get as far along as they've had. And Christopher was no exception to the majority of the racers, and he came from money. He was a little bit spoiled. You have to be if dad's gonna drop that much money on racing and stuff. But yeah, at the time when I met him, he was a big boy. It looks right now that he's lost a few, but he was a big boy back then.
Well, I remember you saying, didn't they have to have a completely different seat made for him at the time?
Basically,
just for the sim.
That's yeah. Won't go too much into detail on that. It's what I've been told, but.
Dang. Well, hey.
Hopefully this doesn't go
viral.
I hope it does, but at the same time.
Yeah. So towards the end of last year, you actually got to do some radical racing. Radical race at Road Atlanta. What was that like? It was a different car, obviously, for you. Tell us a little bit about that.
The Radical has more downforce than any car I'd ever driven at the time. and I'd driven Formula 3, Formula 4, F2000, a whole bunch of stuff. It even tested old Formula 5000s over in Australia and stuff, and it was really cool. But the Radical it's stuck. It is such a fast car, and like we're running Road Atlanta, which I've been to 100 times driving F1600 cars there, and I was astonished by how hard I could, like, turn one in an F1600 car at Road Atlanta is brake decently heavily, drop a gear, and then try to steer your way out of it. And these things, it is totally pegged. You just hold on for dear life, and in deep down inside it's going to stick, but everything in your body is telling you brace for impact.
Everything you've learned. Yeah.
Yeah. They're super fast. I was shocked at how much power the little Hayabusa could put out.
Dang.
But yeah.
That's insane. So recently you and D-Force split. What do you have? Do you have anything lined up for this year in terms of potential work, or are you a free agent right now?
Just driver coaching and stuff. I've got we'll figure something out. I've got other plans in the works. To be in this business, you have to have plan A, B, C, all the way through Z. So I'm not concerned. I'll be fine. And it sucked. It was just some stuff came up and I couldn't give them the time that they needed. So
that makes sense.
It sucks being a student in a way.
Yeah, gotta get that degree though.
Yeah.
We actually first met at the Gateway Kartplex, which is just inside Worldwide Technology Raceway in St. Louis, Madison, Illinois, actually. And you were working at the Kartplex, and obviously I raced at the Kartplex, and I didn't know you raced until I met you. We were talking about tires and stuff because I think the first time we met, you were mounting and dismounting tires. I think you did like 40 sets of tires on one race day, just working at the track.
Yep.
And then we got to talking. You're saying your dad was an engineer, and that was kind of the path you were going towards, and you're talking about driving and stuff. And here I found out you also became the race director for Supercomp, which is, so to put it into perspective, the Gateway Kartplex has 2 different racing series.
And Ignite as well.
Yeah. Oh, you are race director for Ignite. I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Gateway has 2 different series. They've got the Ignite series, which is their spec series, spec chassis, spec tires, spec engine, spec everything. And then they've got their Super Comp, which is like your regular karting club, your typical 4-cycle, 2-cycle classes that you'd see for pretty much any club. And you race direct for that. What is that like? Because you're going from a driver / mechanic to you're the guy. You're looking out for the stuff that you got away with as a driver.
I got away. You guys can't really pull one over on me. I was known for being pretty wily in a kart, which I'm sure you'll see this year if you come back to Gateway. Because I brought my own kart down to beat around with Trevor Agermeyer this year in 2-stroke. But it's really funny. It's trying to see the stuff that kids think that they can get away with, where I'm like, come now. Like, you can't jack somebody up and lift their tires off going into the corner and say, oh no, they spun in front of me. No, been there, done that. I know exactly what you did. You can't hide it. But
I remember you telling me one story in particular. It was a tag. It was a Rotax race. I think you were in junior, and this was at Newcastle, Indiana. And you and this dude had some beef. Previous beef.
Some is an understatement.
Some, yeah. To the start of the race, and if I remember correctly, the way you described it is the exhaust hangs over the back of the rear bumper more, and you hit it and you broke his exhaust before the green flag.
Yeah.
Take us through that.
So the old Rotax exhaust, pretty big. It's pretty big pipe, and it used to just hang over the rear bumper of the kart, and if you hit it right, and if somebody had a looser rear bumper, which you tended to want so that the car could be more free, you could break it off. And it was not super hard. Like if you hit them 6-7 times in a row, like on the same lap, it was almost guaranteed it was coming off. And this one kid, he and I had probably had close to 15 wrecks together. From my perspective, they were all his fault. And apparently to the racing stewards, they were as well, because I got away with my shit because of the crap that he had pulled previously. So we were coming to the green, and they hadn't even thrown us the green yet, and I'd broken his exhaust off, and he just pulled off to the side. Because on the Rotaxes, if you break the exhaust off, your choices are: 1, you're getting disqualified regardless; 2, your engine's going to blow up if you don't shut it off.
Ooh.
So I didn't care too much, if I'm honest.
His race before it started. Holy crap.
Yep. No, I finished it before it started, and there were countless times where he had done sketchy shit like that to me. And in fact, in the heat race, the reason why he and I were so far back in that race, because it was a Pan American, which is like at the time was one of the biggest series in the U.S. And he pretty much, and like, he and I just could not get off of one another at all. And he had taken me out blatantly and at the end of Long Pond at the tight hairpin at Newcastle. So he had it coming. They allowed us to police the rules a bit more back then. But yeah, he didn't get too far. But yeah.
That's crazy. So have you I don't know how to put this without prompting you to give away too much. In terms of driving opportunities, what are the odds that we see you in something other than a Formula Ford 1600 or a Radical this year?
And there's always some stuff up in the air, especially with my career. And I've been known to just get a call one week and, hey, Ryan, we need a driver, come and go. And I'm like, all right, grab the helmet and we'll head out. So nothing's set in stone other than I'm doing the 24-hour NOLA kart race.
That's right.
With USAC. That's going to be a blast. I'm actually doing that. It hasn't been released yet, but it's a confirmed deal. My little brother, who is also a serious national kart racer in his own right, he, Bobby Krug, and I are teaming up to go run that. So hopefully we can beat on the Taylor brothers a little bit.
Yeah, that's right, because I forgot Jordan and Ricky Taylor are going to be in that race. That's actually pretty cool, because it was in Orlando, and they've moved it to NOLA. And that's crazy, because I remember seeing Bobby get announced for that. Dang, that's cool, for him to get the invite to go race that, and then you got invited, and you guys are going to be teammates, and that's cool, because you guys obviously work together at the Carplex.
Yeah.
And actually, it's funny, because Bobby is going to be a guest on the show this week, or next week. So
is he?
Yes. Oh, cool. Yes.
We
should have had you guys all on together, like a full inception.
Yeah, sounds good. Finally I beat him at something. He weighs so much lighter than me when we were on the rental carts at Gateway. I do all I can, channel all my inner talent, but I can't overcome 40 pounds.
Yeah. I believe Andrew had a question for you.
Yeah, like through all your, racing experience, do you have like a favorite car or track you ever drove?
Favorite car, probably the Radical SR3 1500. That thing is it's every bit of the beast. And favorite track, probably Virginia International. That track truly separates the men from the boys there. It's a big commitment track. I've personally always done really well there. When you don't blow a motor, because it's so freaking hot there that everybody's at risk of popping a motor no matter what car you're driving. But it's definitely my favorite place. Second would probably have to be Lime Rock, which is shocking to a lot of people on iRacing. But if you drive Lime Rock in real life, it is a boatload of fun, and there is no room for error.
I was going to say, I don't know who's complained about Lime Rock, but from what I've driven on iRacing, I've enjoyed it. So
a lot of people like yeah, a lot of people like to call it boring, but like when you drive it in real life, that uphill, that wall is real. And it hurts a lot. And the wall through the downhill is real and it hurts a lot coming from experience. But yeah, BIR is definitely my favorite place. It's just a full commitment. If you don't have commitment, you're going to go off track. It's kind of the same with Radical. Like the Radical, you can't baby the car. It will bite you if you think you're about to let off the throttle in the middle of the corner. You'll spin out immediately. It takes full commitment in it, which so does VIR. If you let off at the top of the hill, you're going for a ride through the tall grass, and they may not find you because the grass is too tall. But yeah.
Dang. Well, I mean, regardless, good luck to you in terms of.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully, you have something lined up for this year because there's a lot of racing. How does Ryan Bjerke not have a job? Like, a lot of
we'll be good this year. A lot of stuff is in the works. We'll figure something out. And it's just the nature as a journeyman racer. Like you don't know what job you're gonna have week to week, but you typically do have a job if you're good at what you do. So I'm sure it won't be too long before I'm back on track and something fun.
Kind of ironic. We've been talking about road racing. We had a triple header in NASCAR this past weekend at the Daytona road course. Man, was that insane. There's a lot of controversy around that on a few things, but overall, I'd say fans got their money's worth. That's for sure.
Oh
yeah, without a doubt. I mean, that rain, man. That I wish kind of we saw more of it in the Cup Series. Obviously, can't control the weather, but after seeing it in the truck race, I thought that was some great racing besides the ending there.
Yeah, I mean, we saw several overtimes. I'll be honest, going into the race, I really didn't expect to see Ben Rhodes. I mean, for one thing, go back to back. I mean, Ben Rhodes is obviously very talented, but I mean, he's never popped off and won 2 in a row, especially when you go from Daytona, which is kind of a wild card, the oval, to the road course, which, you don't really know Ben as a road racer. You know, I think everybody kind of expected Sheldon Creed to kind of run the show again, and it just got crazy. I don't know how else you explain it. The rain and everything else. Yeah, I believe was it Canadian Jason White had an issue with his truck, and I think he got parked. Or am I getting that wrong? I knew he was having mechanical issues throughout the race. Does anybody know anything about that?
I'm not too sure on that one, to be honest with you.
I remember seeing some tweets about like radio transmissions between him and the team, but yeah, I mean that seemed pretty par for the course considering how the race went.
No, I mean like I said, it was an exciting race. You bring up Rhodes and Sheldon Creed being up there, but I thought it was also cool to see Jonathan Nemechek, getting his tryout in those KBM trucks. He was up there doing really well, and he, like you said, a mechanical failure. He was losing oil pressure, so that's why he basically his day was on that. But he was up there leading for a good while. So I mean, if he didn't have that failure, he probably would have been battling Ben Rose.
It's crazy is to think about. KBM was like the team for the longest time, and here the last couple of years they really haven't been. And I don't know if it's necessarily a knock on their drivers. I don't think it's really necessarily a knock on the team. It's just like, sometimes a team hits a rut. Sometimes the drivers and the team chemistry isn't there. But I think Nemechek is what KBM needs. And I think KBM is what Nemechek needs because he was in Cup last year. Not really with a competitive team, has never really had a full-time competitive team outside of when he ran for his dad in trucks. So to me, this is what he needs, and obviously, I think anything less than a championship board appearance would be probably a letdown, I'd say.
And in regards to like KBM's recent performance, it also could just be the truck field has gotten more competitive. You see a lot more entries, a lot more competitive entries. And we're not seeing Kyle Busch run a lot of truck races anymore. So that's definitely taken away from a lot of the wins and dominance that they've had in the past.
I think personally, if I were to look at KBM within the last year or two, and this really just ties into how TRD's pipeline is, you are having a lot of young kids going into KBM trucks. I mean, you saw last year and even a little bit into 2019. I mean, there is so much to learn that they're still learning. There's a lot of aggressiveness of even taking themselves out or their teammates out, unfortunately. So, to go on Zach's point, John Hunter Nemechek, who, I mean, he's still pretty young, but rather, more mature, has been that Cup experience. That consistency is what they need, rather than, we're bringing in some of the TRD pipeline who are excited to drive trucks, without a doubt, but they just, again, they're still learning. So, because we even saw Kyle Busch
That's the
being
one-
upset at them, though. You know what I mean? Like he was like, we're putting you in trucks that easily should be winning.
Right.
And when you're not getting it done, like someone like Rafael Lessard or some of these part-timers that went into KBM trucks and were getting it done, and their full-time drivers were not performing whatsoever, it kind of falls more on the driver than the equipment.
And it's interesting because we've got Todd Gilliland. He set all these records, and K&N, I guess it was like the West Series, won like 2 championships in a row, and he struggled in trucks. I don't really understand why, especially when you're getting the best equipment.
Well,
not to mention, I mean,
it's a whole different ballgame.
Lessard and Christian Eckes have both moved to different teams this year. They were both on KBM last year. They're both on different teams now. I mean, Lessard has been pretty solid first 2 races up front, and then Eckes, he's running a partial schedule for ThorSport this year. But I mean, to me, he looks pretty decent on the road course. Obviously, limited road course experience, but he's in a ThorSport truck. One would expect him to be up front in those races. So I mean, it is. You're right. It is kind of surprising that guys like that didn't perform in the KBM trucks, and now we're seeing them perform in other rides. And then for them to go with Nemechek, who's not a TRD driver, it does speak volumes.
Well, one of the big changes that I can note from the past few years with the truck series is they've gone away from manufacturer-specific engines to these generic Ilmor engines. So do you think that could have been a reason why the Toyota drivers were much more competitive in the past?
I could see it. I mean, you look back to 2014, 2015, when Crafton won his 2 championships with Toyota. Obviously, Toyota engine. Eric Jones, was it Eric Jones 2015?
He had a dominating season.
Oh, I'm sorry. 2013, 2014 was Crafton. 2015 was Jones. So yeah, it's a stretch of 3 years where we had Toyotas winning.
William Byron should have won 2016. Yep. Was it not for an engine failure?
Right. And then C. Bell, 2017, Christopher Bell, 2017, and then 2018 we saw Brett Moffitt, which I think by that point we were to the Ilmor engines, but Toyota, 2010s were dominated by Toyota for sure. So now it's just kind of crazy. It's and you guys mentioned it earlier. The field is so much more competitive now. I mean, you've got GMS, who has 4 or 5 teams that are all competitive. You've got ThorSport that has 4 teams that are all competitive. DGR / Front Row, they're usually reasonably competitive. You've got Hattori with Austin Hill, competitive. I mean, they've won races. There's a lot of really talented teams and drivers and trucks. I would honestly argue that is the most competitive series.
It's a blast to watch. Yeah.
I mean, even from a road racer's perspective, it's I prefer to watch the truck series over even the Cup series.
They always put
those guys want it more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of like if you think about college basketball to professional basketball. College basketball, those kids are playing their hearts out to hopefully one day get drafted. it's kind of the same thing with the Truck and Xfinity series because they're trying their hearts out to be able to get that shot into the Cup cars, and it's kind of cool because there's no holds barred for it. It's even a little bit different than the Road to Indy stuff because like you're so scared about how you're gonna wreck your car and what your image is, and in Trucks and Xfinity, they're like, no, for those NASCAR teams, wins count. It doesn't matter how good what you look like on or off camera as much as it does in road racing or like in Road to Indy or an IndyCar because it's a smaller market. So they need to be able to have the guys who have the great face value in their cars and making the money so that the sponsors stick around. Versus NASCAR, where if a company puts their logo on a NASCAR, they're gonna get their money's worth out of it because it's the biggest form of racing here in the States.
That is a good point. I mean, Road to Indy really doesn't get the national exposure that Xfinity and trucks do. I mean, like if you walk up to a random person and ask them what Indy Lights is, they'd be like, "What is that?" They'd probably ask, "You mean IndyCar?" If they know what that is. If you go up to somebody and say, "Hey, NASCAR, do you know NASCAR trucks or NASCAR Xfinity?" They're like, "NASCAR, yeah, I know what NASCAR is." You know, they might not know specifically what you're talking about, but they're gonna know you're talking about NASCAR. So yeah, you're right. I mean, there is a national exposure for trucks and Xfinity, and you're seeing these guys develop as they go. And yeah, I mean, it's just crazy how many competitive teams there are in trucks. And then we moved to Saturday, Xfinity, and I didn't think it could get any crazier than what we had Friday night. Somehow we did. Starting in stage one, coming to the checkers. Allmendinger was leading, final chicane. Austin Cindric gets a run, and AJ blocks him. Fellas, how are we going to evaluate that one? Because I got in my mind how I think that went, but how are we going to assess the blame on that one?
That was Allmendinger. I mean, he was getting down. Cindric, I mean, you get hooked on that bumper, there's nowhere else for him to go. So I'm not really sure why Allmendinger was pushing that hard. Even Cindric and his team were saying that, like, you know, it's stage one. Like, why are you going that hard for it? Which is really a shame because I don't, you know, if that did not happen, we probably would have seen a really amazing race between Cindric and Allmendinger. But, you know, again, that's kind of all on AJ right there.
Yeah, it was definitely way too aggressive for just a stage win, especially when you're the dominant road racing driver. You know, you want to put balls to the wall coming to the finish, not to the stage finish. It just seems like, you know, Cindric got into Allmendinger's quarter panel. He just got squirrely and chased it down, and they just got hooked. I'm not sure if Dinger was necessarily trying to block, but just hard racing.
Well, what's interesting about that is, to me it looked like AJ was trying to race defensive, and you know that's fine, but you know, Cindric's pulling up alongside him and he's running him down the track. You're eventually gonna run out of track. Now, I would put that on Allmendinger. That was a bad block. I mean, he's already up next to him. Not to mention, I think he could have won the stage without running him down the track. I think he could have drag raced him to the line and still won. Another thing to keep in mind is on the road course, there is no out of bounds. That yellow line you see, you know, AJ ran to the yellow line. There is no out of bounds on the road course, as opposed to the oval where the yellow line is out of bounds. So if Cindric really wanted to, he could have gone down to the apron. So that's one argument you could have made for Allmendinger, that Cindric could have gone to the apron because there's a whole lane down there. But at the same time, to me, it's just unnecessarily aggressive. Like, yeah, there's 10 stage points and a playoff point on the line. But at the same time, you throw it away and get no stage points, no playoff points, and you just junk your car. So you have no chance at winning because a win is 5 playoff points. So even if you would have lost the stage, you still save yourself for later. You know, 5 instead of getting 1 playoff point, you could have had 5 playoff points. Big picture, you know, I wish you would have taken a better look at that. Obviously, adrenaline, you know, you're in the moment. It's easy to be armchair quarterback and say what's you know, what's right, what's wrong. And one thing to point out, Allmendinger hasn't raced for a championship since 2018. He hasn't raced full time in anything. 2019, 2020, he was part time. He had no consequences to wrecking out, making a bad move. He's just out there racing. Now there's points on the line, making the playoffs, which I don't think he'll have any issue doing that. But there are consequences to making mistakes like that, and I think that's something he probably needs to keep a better idea of moving forward.
Yeah, that also took out Riley Herbst too, who was actually doing really well. His splitter got hit into the grass, and we all know what happens when a splitter touches the grass. So, that's another thing to just look at there is because of that hard racing of the stage, it had to take out another young guy who probably could have proved himself just as good as the winner Ty Gibbs. You know what I mean? So that was unfortunately another young guy that we could not see how he would perform throughout the day because of that.
And he finished the stage like third or fourth or top five, and as soon as he crossed the start finish line, his splitter gets dug into the grass and he's done. Unfortunately.
Real quick here, guys. Ryan says he's got to take off. Ryan was going to stick around for the whole podcast. Thanks for chiming in on the discussion, by the way.
Yeah,
on top of giving us an interview, what a guy. Thanks again for being here, man. Really appreciate it. And, of course, good luck to you. Is there anyone you want to thank? Any sponsors? Any people you want to thank before you take off?
Just my family and everybody who keeps me grounded, my friends and all that, and my sponsors, Meiji Enterprises, who always send me excellent suits. And if anybody wants a suit if anybody wants a new custom suit, they are the guys to go to. I've had my last 5 suits done by them, and they are incredible. I love every one of them.
Sweet, man. Awesome.
You guys have a great one. Thanks for having me on.
Take it easy, man. We'll see you.
See you guys.
Dude, that was so cool.
Yeah,
man. Okay, back to Xfinity. Stage 2.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember anything from stage 2?
I mean, there really wasn't much else going on. Ty Gibbs, that's when he started to work his way up there after the incident with Austin Cindric. I will say, though, like a memorable thing after seeing that is because of that accident, the right front fender of Cindric was basically gone. And even after that damage, he was still relatively competitive, battling Gibbs for the lead and all that sort of stuff. But that's really mostly how it was. We just saw some cautions again at the end. We hit double overtime, so kind of similar to trucks. But
yeah, and unfortunately, because of all these late cautions, we saw this throughout the weekend. It's hard to lap a guy on these big road courses. So when a caution comes out, leaders are going to pit for fresh tires, but everyone at the tail end of the lead lap is going to go stay out and end up restarting the race at the front. And I hate to say, because of that, we never saw a real good battle between Cindric and Ty Gibbs for the win, because they were both just too busy trying to maneuver through all those lap cars or slower cars. And we saw Ty Gibbs go through the grass a few times. Surprisingly, did not tear up a splitter. Made it to the finish, but that was some crazy driving by him.
That was impressive.
Yeah.
And they did get pretty close to battling out before we had overtime. I was impressed that Cindric was able to hold the lead. I mean, yeah, he's a great road racer. We all know this. He's raced Rallycross. He's raced in the Road to Indy. He's raced sports cars. We all know this. We all know he's a great road racer. There's no question to that. I was just surprised he was able to stay up there and run as fast as laps as he was, uncontested pretty much for a while, with the damage that he had. I mean, missing the whole right front section of his bumper / fender. Daytona is an aero-dependent track. You don't think of road courses as being aero-dependent, but they are. And especially you think of like the NASCAR Turn 1 going onto the backstretch towards the bus stop. That is a very fast section. And if you got any kind of aerodynamic deficiencies, that's going to hurt. Not to mention you're not creating downforce in the infield section. So, I mean, that's got to make cornering harder as well. And, man, Ty Gibbs, like some of the moves he was pulling, they were like iRacing moves. Like he was just sending it in there 3-4 wide and it stuck every time. It was so impressive. I mean, literally his first Xfinity start. He's 18 years old. When you see stories like this, guys this young that have no national NASCAR experience, you think of them, okay, They're in a good car. They're probably going to be fast. They're probably going to make some mistakes. Maybe they'll fizzle out at the end. He didn't. He got better as the race went on with zero practice, I might add. Zero practice, zero experience in this car. And
yeah, was that the first time he drove this car?
I'm pretty sure that was the first time because they don't test.
Yeah.
They don't test. There's no practice. I would assume this is the first time he ever hopped in the car and drove it. The one thing, there's one minor hiccup that I noticed. There's a restart where he was on the outside pole. He spun the tires.
Yeah.
And caused a stack up. He fell back to like 34. Outside of that, I mean, really a flawless race for an 18-year-old. And I will say, um, I was one guy that was kind of a little skeptical and critical of the way some of the interviews he gave coming into this because he's very outspoken, but at the same time, I've come to appreciate that from Ty. He speaks what's on his mind, and we need more guys like that in NASCAR. We always thought of like Dale Earnhardt, Tony Stewart. I mean, even Kyle Busch gets hate for that now, but Kyle Busch speaks his mind, and people like it. We need guys that aren't statues. Ty Gibbs is not a statue. Ty Gibbs has made it clear that he will speak what's on his mind. He's honest. He's not going to sugarcoat it. And I like that. And the emotion he showed after the race really showed, how much it meant to him. And to me, I became a Ty Gibbs fan that night. I'll be honest, I did. And I think I can't wait to see what he does in the sport.
Yeah, I mean, you really did hit the nail on the head there. You took the words out of my mouth. I was not expecting Ty Gibbs or even thinking of Ty Gibbs when we were talking about the Daytona road course. So to see him make the moves that he was making, and like you said, that interview at the end, that made me a Ty Gibbs fan too. I mean, we need more of these young drivers to come in. And I know, when they're affiliated with TRD, they try to make an image, or NASCAR Driver for Diversity, they try to make an image and kind of not make them like too radical, you know what I mean? Like they're trying to still stay in that corporate sort of way, but more people want to see how Ty Gibbs was. I mean, you could even hear it from the fans after, like during the interview, he was crying, he was emotional, he was just completely ecstatic. And if the more young drivers are going to continue to be that way, I mean, I want to follow them all the way up to Cup if hopefully that's where they get. So, I really hope we see Ty Gibbs compete in more races, hopefully in Cup, whenever he gets there, because those are the personalities that the sport needs.
How do y'all think his outlook for the rest of the season is? He's 1-for-1 in the Xfinity Series so far. So do you see him as a championship contender? Or no, he's not full season, is he?
Running the ARCA full time. So,
full time, okay.
Yeah, so the 54 is going to be split by Ty Gibbs, Ty Dillon. I think Truex is running a race. Kyle Busch is running a race, obviously, a few races. And I think Hamlin as well. In terms of, because, if NASCAR would grant him a waiver, he would be eligible. But they already have prior obligations to have other guys in that car. And plus, if I'm NASCAR, I wouldn't want to rush him. He's running for the championship in the ARCA Menard Series this year, full time. Because he just turned 18 at the end of last year, I believe. So this is his first opportunity to run for a full championship with tracks, not just short tracks, super speedways and whatnot. This I think the one thing that really, I don't say worries me, the one thing I'm a little skeptical about is he won in his first start. So to me, what do you build on from there? Where do you go from there? Because usually when you think of your first start, maybe you have some struggles, maybe it ends up in a crash, maybe you have a decent run, but there's always somewhere where you can improve. What I wonder is mentally, how does he take this and build on it from there to where he continues to grow as a driver? I don't want to see Ty Gibbs be a bust. I don't want him to be one of those one and done guys. I want Ty Gibbs to be one of those guys that sticks around for a while. He's in the Cup Series winning championships. So if I'm Ty Gibbs, how do I build on the success from this? How do you turn that into more?
Well, I mean, he didn't have a perfect race by any means. Like you said, he spun the tires on the restart and all that sort of things. So, I mean, he's definitely going to probably take a look at where he could have been better in corners or restarts. Or he mentioned in his interview that was like the first live pit stop that he ever had. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways where he can look and see where he can improve. But I wouldn't see him being a bust by any means. I see him definitely going on for a while. I mean, you can't sit here and say, oh, it was whatever. It's not like it was a Daytona super speedway race. This was a road course race, racing one of the, best road racers we got in NASCAR, and who has been in sports cars, which, was Cindric. So I think him winning his first race as a road course says a lot more than if it was a super speedway or just a regular oval. So, what do you think on that, Andrew? You say it'd probably be how long until he gets the cup? I mean, he's got that backing by Gibbs, right? It's obviously his grandson, so you say a couple of years maybe.
Yeah, I'd say sooner than most people think, within 3 years. And Cup Series, we have a 4-car limit on teams, so one person's going to have to leave from Gibbs. For me, I think it's going to be Hamlin. He has that team with Jordan. Might as well go off and drive for that team someday. Maybe we'll see Ty Gibbs driving the 11 car in a few years.
That would be insane. That really would be insane seeing that. Like I was saying though, Ty Gibbs, man, I didn't really look at him much in ARCA, but this was just like a completely different outlook.
ARCA's hard to tell because if you come from money, you have that backing, you're going to get the best equipment. You're going to outrun all these smaller teams. It's mostly Venturini and ARCA. Is his ARCA entry a Joe Gibbs or?
I believe it is is it Venturini or is it Joe Gibbs? I have to look up that because I know they all run Toyotas. They all look similar, so I'm not even sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, it is a Joe Gibbs entry, number 18. He finished 4th at the Daytona Oval. The next race is at Phoenix.
Yeah, he was the one that complained that nobody went with him.
Yeah,
but he was up there. He
right.
could have won though. He was definitely competitive in there too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting seeing that. Zach is gone right now, so he'll be back in a little bit. So we're kind of taking over. But if we transition to the Cup race, everybody was hyping up Michael McDowell, which I mean is understandable.
Yeah, he started out.
Yeah, even if he wasn't the Daytona 500 winner, he's obviously a proven road racer and then himself and front row.
He drove in cars there. Champ Car, has a lot of road racing experience. I think he started out in open wheel cars on road courses and then transitioned to stock cars later on. But he had issues right off the bat.
First lap.
Do you remember what happened?
It was the first turn. He, they said that he locked up because I know he went really wide. But they did investigate, and apparently there was something wrong with the tire. The tire was going down. McDowell said he felt like a vibration or something during pace laps, and he thought that was normal. And the team was like, no, that's actually not normal after it already happened. So, that was the whole reason why. It's like, oh, tire went down. Which sucks, because if that didn't happen, I think we would have seen him up there a lot more. Do you happen to remember where he finished? Because, I mean, he was still, holding his own weight even after that happened. So
I think he finished 7th.
Yeah, so, he's still up there regardless of what happened. He was still up there doing his thing, proving that he's not just some fluke or whatever, even though, people that have watched sport for a while obviously know that. But the race in itself...
This was definitely a track that ran to his strengths.
Yeah, exactly. So... it wasn't surprising seeing McDowell up there anyway. But, the racing itself up there was great. We saw the normal contenders such as Chase Elliott and Hamlin and all those sort of people up there. But there was a lot of people going off track, a lot of people locking up and all that sort of things.
We ran a different package this time than last year. I think last year we ran the high downforce that we run on speedways usually, but I think with more horsepower?
More horsepower, smaller spoiler, and I think, I could be wrong, I know they talked about this in the truck race, I think they had a different tire as well. I mean, I think inherently you have to have a different tire. High downforce to a low downforce package, you have to have a different tire. So it was the same track, but it was a little different for these teams, these drivers. And I mean, we saw it. McDowell started pole, completely blew turn 1. It was a challenge for everybody. And we saw comers and goers at the front. It wasn't just Chase Elliott. I mean, we all kind of thought Chase Elliott's going to run away with this. I think at the end of the race, if we didn't have some of those yellows, it would have been Chase Elliott running away with it. But we did have guys like Truex that was strong. You had Hamlin, he was strong. You had other guys, Kurt Busch. Kurt Busch surprised me. Kurt Busch is a good all around racer. He doesn't really strike me as a road racer, and he was up there in the mix. Joey Logano was up there battling it out. I mean, there were so many guys at the front throughout the race, and it made it really entertaining.
Yeah, and a lot of those guys you mentioned, Truex, Kurt Busch, they had issues during the race. Brad Keselowski had an awful day, but just how the cautions worked out, he was able to work his way back up to fourth and finish.
I'll say one surprising guy was Austin Dillon, though, because this was his first laps around it. Simulator probably helped, but
and also gotta remember he ran the Rolex 24.
The Rolex, yeah.
Yeah, and it seems like those guys who ran that race or have run the Rolex 24 did a lot better in the Daytona road course than those who didn't.
That is interesting that you point that out, because Kurt Busch ran a Daytona prototype for Penske back in like 2009 or something. And then obviously like Austin ran for Rick Ware. Cody Ware in a Rick Ware racing car was up in the top 20. He almost got to the top 15, I think. He ended up finishing
he finished 25th.
25th, which for that team, still a good run. I mean, Cody's always been a good road racer, but it's just like Watkins Glen seems to be more of like a heavily aerodynamic reliant track. You can almost put Sonoma in that category as well. But Cody, I mean, yeah, he had a great drive, and obviously you got to avoid some of the madness. But I mean, near the end of the race, he was up there, in the top 20, I think. Cody ran the Rolex 24. I'm trying to think of who else. I mean, Chase ran it, obviously.
You said Ty Gibbs ran it, even though that was Xfinity?
The Rolex?
Yeah, or am I thinking of someone else?
I was talking about Kurt Busch.
Okay.
Kurt Busch ran. Penske had a Verizon Daytona prototype in like 2009. They ran in Grand Am for I think only 1 year, and they ran the Rolex 24. And I'm 99% sure Kurt was on that team. I think it was. I'm trying to think of some of the one-off guys they had for that. I think Elio was on that, and I think Ryan Briscoe might have been on that too. But I mean, we saw a lot of great action, and it really picked up towards the end of the race. But
rain.
It really picked up because a caution that we really didn't need. And I, disclaimer. It is in the NASCAR rule book apparently that if there's rain on the track, they have to throw the yellow to give the teams the opportunity to choose.
Not like we can see the rule book. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's a rule I agree with. Like we don't want to see 40 cars under green flag try and get the pit lane when the track is wet to get.
A rule you agree with?
Yeah, that's the rule I agree with.
Nah, dude. I thought you would have said the completely different thing.
We're about to throw hands.
No. I agree with the rule, but the way they used it in this situation, I do not agree with.
I'm the opposite.
I don't agree with it whatsoever.
I think they use the rule the way it's supposed to be used. I just don't agree with the rule. And I think Brendan's in the same boat. I think, and it's all situational. Not all rain is the same. In terms of how hard it's coming down, what parts of the track. Daytona's a big track, and I think we only had rain in small parts of the track. So, in my mind, obviously no teams put on rain tires, so it's really a pointless yellow. You throw the yellow, and by still considering it is in the rule book. Now, if we're contesting whether that rule should be changed, think about it this way. In this situation, okay, we throw the yellow, give the teams the option to pit. Well, nobody pitted for tires. What did you do? You just created another. It's like the old debris cautions that we used to see. It's like the stage yellows that we've seen. More commercials, and I'm not sitting here. I'm not gonna sit here complain about commercials in general because we need those. As much as people complain about them, we need those. From a business aspect, NASCAR is a business, but in terms of the entertainment aspect of it too, you got to have a balance of, how much you look at it from the business aspect, how much you look at it from the entertainment aspect. And to me, I think you should just let the teams decide. Obviously, if it's like a downpour, and NASCAR feels like they should throw the yellow, then obviously do it. But I think the only scenario that NASCAR can make them put rain tires on is at the start of the race and make you start on rains. I think that's most racing series in general.
I think the most frustrating part about this caution for the rain was as soon as they threw the caution and they got a bunch of them under the pace car, the rain was gone. It wasn't like a downpour where they needed rain tires, and obviously wasn't going to turn into that. So it's just they found an excuse to make the race entertaining.
Yeah, I mean,
and unfortunately, it kind of screwed over Chase Elliott at the end.
It did, 100%. And I'm not saying this like it doesn't matter who was in the lead when this yellow comes out. It could have been
right.
Name the driver that you hate the most and put him up there. It doesn't matter who it is. It was wrong.
I'm just a little mad because I picked Chase Elliott this week to win.
I almost picked Chase, but I think because you picked Chase, I picked Denny. Yeah, I mean, it sucks when you see a driver get screwed out of a race. Obviously, we could sit here and say, that it's racing, that happened. But that was, I mean, per the rule, it was the right call, but that doesn't necessarily mean the rule was right. I think they should really reevaluate that because we have a lot more road courses. Between the top 3 series, we have a lot more road courses that we're going to. So that means rain is a lot more of a probability, higher probability. So having a rule like that, you don't want it to affect the race. So let's say this is 3 laps to go, 2 laps to go. Maybe he's coming to the white flag, and he's about to cross under the flag stand, and there's like a slight rain.
They wouldn't throw it. They wouldn't.
Yeah, but
such a judgment
could you imagine,
call.
Though?
No, it could.
It'd be very NASCAR to throw you.
Yeah, that would exactly. I mean, I don't even think that rule should be in there, honestly.
No, 100%. You don't need it. Let the teams decide.
Yeah, if we say that these drivers are the best in the world, as they claim, I'm sure they can handle rain or even that's just a strategy call at that point. If you want to stay out and chance it, that's on you. If you want to lose track and get the rain, that's on you. I mean, if it's going to downpour and you want to make the argument of safety, I guess I see where you're coming from. But at the same time, like that, I just put it in the driver's hands, put it in the team hands. I mean, we don't.
Well,
need to
it's
stop
one
the
thing
race.
it's one thing, letting drivers decide, letting them be safe. But what about these pit crews on pit road? How safe would it be, on slicks trying to get into your pit stall? To me, I just think it'd be a little too chaotic, and with 40 cars on track, this isn't F1 with only 20. It's a huge field, and everyone coming at once might be a little disastrous.
But I would argue that if a team is out there on slicks and the track is wet, if you're out there on slicks, racing, not just driving around, if you're racing on slick tires on a wet track, if you didn't falter then, how are you going to falter in the pits where you're arguably going much slower? I get what you're saying, Andrew. It is, you got to always keep safety in mind. It is very important. But if we're going strictly off of logic, off of speed, you're going faster in a race condition on slick tires on a wet track. If you don't have any issues there, who's to say that you would have issues on pit road? Now, at the same time, you also got to consider, if it's a semi-wet racetrack, it's going to be self-cleaning, right? You got cars on it. It's going to clean it up. It's going to be building temperature, so it's going to be cleaning it up. Pit road isn't as active, so you're going to have more sitting water. That is a valid concern. You could have puddling. You could have, it's going to be probably more wet. So that is also a valid concern. So I do get that.
Well, I would think that the drivers, would personally even police themselves. I mean, they're not going to be going balls to the wall as fast as they can go when it's raining anyway. They're not stupid. So they're going to be doing what they can, going probably a little bit slower, even arguably on pit road as well. So these are just, like I said, you want to claim that they're the best drivers in the world, let them race. Let them duke it out in the rain, Put that up to the teams, see how it happens. I don't see a problem with that whatsoever.
One fair argument to NASCAR's decision and the rules if they were just following the rule that they have in the rule book already. Other than the Xfinity Series and then obviously the Truck Series Friday night, we haven't seen much rain racing in NASCAR. So
was it Mid Ohio and Xfinity? What was that, like a couple years ago or something
downpour,
like that?
yeah.
I was thinking about that. Yeah.
The Roval last year.
Allmendinger? Was that
Xfinity has
Yeah.
had a lot of rain races. They had Watkins Glen, Road America, Montreal.
Yep.
They've had the most rain action. The Cup Series only had the Roval last year, and that was just the beginning of the race too.
Pretty minor.
So
we're gonna sprinkle here and throw it out.
That's one good point to make if you're going for safety. These Cup guys likely have not raced in the rain that much. Meaning, if this is a direction we're going towards, this schedule for this year, including more road courses, if this is the direction that NASCAR goes, having more road courses instead of just 2 or 3 a season, having 4, 5, 6, that means, like I said earlier, the likelihood of having more rain, it's more of a probability. So maybe they're just taking this approach now to kind of ease into rain racing because, like I said, the likelihood of guys having raced in the rain, having rain experience, is probably pretty low. There's probably not many guys that have that kind of experience. So, they're probably just covering themselves on that one, and I get that.
Well, how conservative can NASCAR get, though? You could make the same argument with, how many NASCAR drivers in the Cup Series have raced in the dirt, and now they made a whole Bristol dirt race. So, I mean, again, these drivers should be the best. You should be putting them in any situation. They should be able to adapt. That's how it should be. I mean, you claim to be a race car driver, and then you want to be not like babysat, but like you want to be coddled because it starts raining or something like that. Like they're big boys, they can do it. I mean,
I'm sure the drivers would agree with you,
right?
I'm sure racers race. I would assume that's what they would say. Racers race. Now,
and a lot of drivers were upset with the call.
Yeah, I mean, it ruins your strategy, it ruins your track position, it bunches everybody up. It's a free for all. Brenden, you did make a good point though about like the versatility of NASCAR now, going to dirt. We got all these road courses. We've got the 4 super speedways. We've got short tracks. We've got intermediate tracks. I've seen some things on Twitter and Facebook in terms of people questioning like NASCAR's identity, I guess, in terms
of.
Well,
it just came out today that they're doing a heat race. They're doing heat races,
which is really unorthodox.
But you can say like any of the changes the past 20 years have been unorthodox.
Right.
The chase, playoff stages.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's par for the course. I mean, NASCAR is one of those organizations that is not afraid to take a leap of faith and try something different. I mean, the All-Star race one year, they tried alternate tire compounds. They had 2 different compounds.
Holy crap, I remember that.
Yeah, and it didn't really work, but it's like, hey, it's the All-Star race, and NASCAR's trying. At least they're trying something.
Would we say that they're having an identity crisis? Because we're taking so many things from different series, and then
that's where I was going with that. Yeah, and you think about it like this: IndyCar used to race primarily ovals, and they've since gone away from that. But more specifically, they raced a lot of dirt tracks because IndyCar originated. IndyCar and Sprint car, those were like all kind of the same thing. IndyCars were glorified sprint cars, and over time, IndyCar got away from racing on the dirt ovals, and now I've grown into a larger road racing series than anything outside of the Indianapolis 500. Formula One used to race on ovals. They don't race on ovals anymore. They became strictly road street courses. We've seen so many different series evolve over time. NASCAR was originally dirt, and they're going back to their roots, and I think that's cool. But we see series evolve for a reason, and they kind of stick to that identity. And I don't blame NASCAR for wanting to try something different. But to me, I would rather watch dirt cars race on dirt rather than stock cars that are built to race on asphalt, race on dirt. Because you think about it, these cars are aerodynamically dependent. Like we're talking about cars that produce a lot of downforce. You don't think stock cars producing a lot of downforce, but they do. And to me, how's that going to play on dirt in terms of downforce, side force? And I don't remember. Did they say they're taking the splitter off for this race? Because I would assume
They are.
Yeah,
They are.
I was gonna say there's no way you can run
Yeah.
that.
But I mean, you bring up like downforce, side force, like it's always been a part of the cars, but it's gotten extreme over the past 2 decades. And you could also say that was a part of the evolution of NASCAR. Maybe they took it a bit too far, and now they're trying to backtrack a little bit. We got this next gen car coming out next year. Lots of changes aerodynamically to it. I'm excited to see how it plays out, but we got to get a clear direction where the sport wants to go. Lots of road courses. They're bringing out a dirt track. What's NASCAR going to be in 10 years?
Right, and this is the interesting part. We're starting to see a lot more interest in NASCAR. NASCAR dipped after like 2005. I think 2005 was its peak. We really didn't see it start falling off big time till like 2008.
Yeah,
and then from there it's just kind of like it faded. Yeah, the recession. That's a good point. The recession.
Talladega Nights.
Yeah, I mean, but that was during the peak, really. I mean, that was you ask people about Talladega Nights, they think it's hilarious. I don't think it necessarily. It's a good jab at NASCAR, but I don't think it hurt NASCAR necessarily.
I think for people that
Andrew
weren't previously, I think a lot of people who weren't, into NASCAR before, it gave them a bad taste of the sport. Minorities,
you already had your mind made up.
Yeah, it put all the bad stereotypes about the sport into mainstream,
right?
And it didn't really reflect well on it.
But I mean, what I will say is, we have so much interest coming into the sport. We have Michael Jordan, team owner. We've got Pitbull, team owner. We've got Alvin Kamara sponsoring Ryan Bjerke in the Xfinity Series with his juice company, the Big Squeezy, this past weekend. So we've got so many interests outside of the industry. It's a very pivotal time. It's a very exciting time because, NASCAR's, at least the ratings haven't picked up yet, but in terms of the interest, we're getting to the point where we may see a big increase, right, to get NASCAR back into the mainstream. But that's the thing. That's the thing that I question, your identity. Is NASCAR going to be one of those, like, where's NASCAR going to be in 10 years? You know what I'm saying? If they don't have an identity by that point, what are they? Because NASCAR had an identity. To me, NASCAR had an identity for years. But are they trying to find that, or are they trying to be one of those series that kind of just they mix it up whenever they can or whenever it makes sense to?
Well, you could argue that what they had wasn't working. We had 34 ovals a year, and how many of those races were snooze fests? How many did you just not care to watch? I could say there were a good many for me. Road courses, there's only 2 a year, but those usually are the 2 most exciting races. Are up there, top 10, top 5 races a year. Now, does that mean every road course race is going to be exciting? No, unfortunately. But, we get more variety in the tracks. We're getting away from these cookie cutter ovals. Chicagoland, Kentucky are gone. Auto Club is getting changed into a unique short track. I'm curious how that's going to turn out. The sport might be trying to find its identity, really changing a lot, but I think it might be the move for the best.
That's the hope that I do have. Is they're trying these things, and the things that they've messed with so far, wholesale, I think, are good for the sport. Daytona road course, for example, I would argue that needs to stay.
Oh yeah.
I would argue that needs to continue to be the second race of the season, not just for the fact that it follows the 500 and you're probably guaranteed 2 exciting races, but also it just makes sense logistically to go
Stay in
from
Daytona for like 2.5 weeks.
Right. You have 2 points races at Daytona. You go to Homestead. Say you go to Atlanta next. I think NASCAR, and I mean, they did this with the West Coast swing for years, and I don't know why they didn't try this with their schedule in general, of trying to have these groups of tracks together. Because in my mind, I feel like that would be more cost effective for them to race in regions that are, say they race in the Southeast 4 races, say they race in the Great Plains, Midwest, how many ever races, to me, it just makes more sense logistically for them. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
And like even like we
Looking
saw
at it-
last year, COVID screwed up the schedule and we had Wednesday night races for a little bit. They could easily just take a series out Wednesday night to Rockingham or a short track in the like Richmond or Martinsville, Bristol. They could easily do that on a Wednesday night. Switch things up a little bit. You might have a better chance of grabbing people you wouldn't usually get on Sunday afternoons.
I would say also, if we're talking about like these swings in areas, like keeping it down in the Southeast for a little bit, or keeping it over in the West Coast for a little bit, and all these sort of areas, I think that would be a great even marketing opportunity, because I mean, now you're going to have people say, oh yeah, NASCAR is going to be around for a month. You can see a lot more races rather than, okay, yeah, they're over at Auto Club, I can go see them, but now they're going to be back over on the East Coast, so I won't be able to see them for a while. But if you have NASCAR, like, you could even market it as like, oh, like the NASCAR tour, like they're coming over and they're going to be here in this area for a couple of weeks. So you can, have a lot more opportunities of seeing them, or like if a guy can't make it 1 week, he can go another week. So I think it'd be cool to keep in one area for a little bit consistently and be like, oh, NASCAR's over here for a while. NASCAR's over here for a while. Like, I think that would be a great opportunity rather than just saying 1 week here and here and here and here. It's like kind of too much.
And Formula One does a great thing in Europe, in Pacific too. They keep the races grouped together. You'll have a race in Japan and then China, and Australia. Obviously much different, but in Europe, is very close together. All these countries are tightly packed, so having all those races together really makes it easier for people to get out, no matter where they're at.
One thing to keep in mind, I think. And I am all for this, by the way. There's 2 sides to this coin, though. The one side is Brenden, like you said, these people have the opportunity to go see several races if they want to, or if, say, they can't go to one week, they can go to another next week. Then there's the aspect of you have all these races grouped together. Say you have somebody that would have let's say, I'm trying to think of a couple of tracks that are close to each other. Say Martinsville and Martinsville and Richmond. Okay, say these 2 races are back to back, and say maybe they're not typically back to back, and somebody goes to both races. Say you got people that go to both races and they can't financially justify going to both races back to back. It's just too much of a cost. Maybe they can't get off work, even if you got travel Friday or whatever. If it's just one of those things, I think you could lose people on that. But at the same time, you could also, a lot of these tracks we go to twice a year. So say, okay, I'm going to go to the spring Richmond race. I'm going to go to the fall Martinsville race. It is a weird concept. Obviously, we're just speaking hypothetically here. But, I mean, I think it'd be cool to see NASCAR try something like that.
And I will say, I think this year with the Daytona races back-to-back, then Homestead, it's likely due to COVID, limited capacity in the stands. It's going to be hard to fill those up anyways. So, might as well make it logistical for the teams.
I also want to throw something out that confuses me. Typically, you start the first couple races of the season off where it's hot because it's the colder months. Why don't we go to Sonoma in the earlier months of the season?
Oh, that looked beautiful.
Like, why do we go in June
when it's like 100 dead? It's not even green.
Yeah, it's literally all dust. It looks like you're just racing in a freaking desert.
I had no idea Sonoma could look green like that until I saw like a picture. Like, I thought Sonoma was just like some freaking tan, dead looking place, and then someone showed a picture of it in another month, and I'm like, whoa, the grass can grow. Like,
yeah, in March, that track is beautiful. Why not go there? I mean, we had the West Coast swing for how long? Obviously, COVID restrictions would probably affect our availability to go there. But if we're speaking 5 years from now, why not go to the new Auto Club track, Las Vegas, Sonoma, Phoenix? Try to hit all these races at the same time. Sonoma, could you imagine, dude, Sonoma in March? That would look
That would look
That'd be
amazing.
so cool.
Dalen Bard have an
Yeah.
amazing time photographing that. That'd be cool.
Yes. Free Dalen. I think
Yeah.
he
Is he back on Twitter? Or
got a new
he's
Twitter
still out?
he got a
he's
new
breaking
account.
the rules.
I don't think he got his own of that. If you guys haven't followed, Dalen is a photographer. He's a great photographer, by the way. If you don't know him, I don't know how you don't know him, but
You've probably seen his pictures.
he's a
he's
great
contracted by many teams. Yeah.
yes, you've probably seen his work before. But his account got suspended on Twitter for whatever reason. I don't know.
What did he say?
Social media has been kind of weird the last few months. I don't know if it has to do with like the election and all that stuff.
Dalen Bard gets silenced because of the election.
Dude, why else would he get, like, you know what I mean? Like,
misinformation, Dalen Bard.
well, I mean, media companies have been very.
He said that it just happened. Like, but
yeah,
I mean, what? Like,
why else would it happen? I mean, media companies have been very sketchy since like the election has happened. I'm just gonna stay on that train and say that's what happened. I could be wrong. I don't know. It's weird that it got taken down. Twitter, free this man. Hashtag free Dalen.
Dude, people would say in the comments in one of the Facebook groups that me and you were in, Zach, like they would, oh my God, I'll tell you.
I'm about to hear at the part
funny
from what I just said, and I'm here for it. Okay, I'm here for
it. Did you see the one comment? And guys, this is just a joke. But did you see the one comment where they like cut off what he said, and he was like, "My GF is 13," and they're like, "Oh, that's why he got suspended."
I screenshotted that.
Yeah. What is the
that.
context of that?
I screenshotted that and I cropped that. That's why that's a thing. So, I don't know if this is gonna be. I don't know if this is gonna be in the podcast. But if we do, Andrew's gonna put up the picture of what we're referring to. Dalen tweeted something, and I forget what it was about, but it was like his girlfriend had a 13-year-old like cousin or sibling or something, and I cropped it out so it just said my girlfriend's 13, not it said like my girlfriend's 13-year-old cousin or something like that. I just cropped it out. So my girlfriend's 13.
Oh Jesus Christ.
And yeah. Gotta love Twitter. Twitter, as bad as Twitter is sometimes, it does prevent some disaster.
Well, if that's what got him suspended.
How did that happen?
And hey, it's good. It's good because look, now Ryan Vargas has that sponsor, the Big Squeezy, and I actually did get a DM from him in the middle of this podcast, and he said he is good to do a podcast with us. Just let him know when. So, and cool.
It's awesome.
Hey, you guys heard it here first. News alert: Ryan Vargas is going to be on the podcast. That's freaking awesome.
NASCAR Xfinity Series driver Ryan Vargas.
So, fun fact about that, and I'm sure we'll talk about this when we have him on, but I used to do another podcast with some guys, and we did this a couple years ago, and it's just we were all busy in a workout, but the first guest that we ever had was Ryan, and this was before he started running in Xfinity. It was a tough time in his life between, he just lost his K&N ride, and he was looking for a ride and something, and he came on to do this interview. It was a fantastic interview. Ryan's a great dude. So excited to have him on. But he was the first guest we had, and we were the first podcast that he was on. So to me, that was really cool, really special. But yeah, super excited to have Ryan on because he had TikTok as a sponsor last year. That was a huge deal. Introducing TikTok to NASCAR.
That's cool.
That's insane. I mean, this was
that's what we need. We need these like tech companies, these social media companies coming in. Like it was a big deal when eBay and Microsoft sponsored for a race.
This wasn't an A-list Cup driver driving for an A-list Cup team. This was Ryan. And honestly, I feel like he's a very talented Xfinity driver. But driving for a smaller team, they pulled that. We'll obviously talk about that, how that all came about, because it's a great story how that all came together. And then Alvin Kamara sponsoring him with his company, the Big Squeezy. I mean, dude's killing it right now. Dude's absolutely killing it. So excited to have him
We
on.
should get Leighton on this podcast one of these times. That'd be cool to see his
Leighton's another
point of
good
view.
dude to interview. I feel like anybody that is like a diehard NASCAR fan probably knows who Leighton is. At the very least from sim racing, because that dude has sim raced for forever, I think. Between NR 2003 and iRacing. Yeah, that dude's funny, and he's the PR guy for JD Motorsports. So he'd be a great dude to interview too.
Yeah, it's pretty close to Gregson too. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've covered pretty much everything except the race winner from Sunday, Christopher Bell, first time winner. I don't think anybody expected Bell to win.
I think last week, Zach, you said you picked Martin Truex Jr. Or you said a JGR car definitely.
Yeah,
I don't think you were thinking Christopher Bell.
No, sir. And it's not like we all know Christopher Bell is very talented, but the Daytona road course, we're thinking Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, Truex. Not Christopher Bell in his second Cup season in his first year for Gibbs. I was really impressed. And it all makes sense. I mean, he's talented, driving for one of the best teams. He's got Adam Stevens as a crew chief. I'll be honest. If I'm Kyle Busch, I'm regretting this now. Not just because it's one race. It's one race. Don't get me wrong. And I think Ben Bayshore is going to be a good crew chief for him. But Adam Stevens and Kyle Busch won 2 championships together from 2015 to 2019. A 5-year stretch, they won 2 championships. In the current playoff format, no driver has won more than 1. Kyle is the only driver to win 2, and he did it with Adam Stevens. They had a rough year last year, which is, we've seen like Joey Logano has missed the playoffs. And then the next year went on to win the championship. We've seen guys win the championship and then the next year struggle. Tony Stewart, 2005, wins the championship. 2006, misses the chase. Brad Keselowski, 2012, wins the championship. And I think 2013, he also missed the chase. Jimmy Johnson wins the championship 2016, makes the playoffs in 2017, but he struggled. Kyle was in the playoffs, took him almost the whole season to win the race, and they only won 1 race that year. I could see where he's frustrated, and obviously we don't know what was going on behind the scenes, but I think long term, I don't know, as a fan, as an outsider, as somebody just looking from the outside, looking in, I'm really questioning this, and obviously it's great for Christopher Bell moving forward.
Yeah, but
I think Kyle has the talent regardless, though. He could win in almost anything except maybe his own Xfinity car, but he'll kill it in Cup Series regardless.
Well, just think of who he's had as a crew chief previously. I think he's had Steve Addington and Dave Rogers, I believe. And you got to think back to like 2008 when he won 8 races and flopped in the chase. That is a good point, though. It wasn't until 2015 with Stevens that he really picked up. So maybe that has something to do with it. Kyle is obviously a generational talent. I'm not gonna dispute that or argue that. But I do think the chemistry between a crew chief and a driver is very important.
Yeah, I agree. We're going to see how Bayshore is with him this year. I don't know. I think seeing Christopher Bell with him really just put Bell out even more than he already was. Last year we didn't really get to see how Bell was too much. You know what I mean? I was kind of disappointed, but seeing him this year, already at a road course and all that, and he was doing well at Daytona. I say we'll have a lot to do with how Stevens is. So Busch not having that championship crew chief, I just wish that he would have been a little more patient with him, at least give him another year, and then maybe make that decision rather than last year obviously was not his year, and then he's out. That just doesn't seem really make sense to me.
And with these 4-car teams, we usually see one of them struggle for some reason, no matter who it is. Who do you guys think will be the car that struggles this year with JGR?
Kyle Busch.
That's hard to say because if we're looking off trends statistically, it's not often that you see a driver come close to a championship and then not win it and then have a good season following. You can look back at many seasons that prove that. If we're going off that trend, we would say Denny Hamlin. If we're going off of a continuation streak of last year, Kyle Busch. I don't see that happening though. Truex is an interesting one. In his second year with James Small as a crew chief, I think they've meshed decent together. Obviously, Cole Pern was a huge asset to him. There's obviously been a lot of rumors that this could be Truex's last year as a full-time Cup driver.
Yeah.
I would believe that, honestly, because you've got a lot of talent in the pipeline right now at TRD. And I'm not
Plus
saying they
with,
push Truex out.
Sherry.
Truex has the backing, the financial backing. But maybe he's just at a point in his life, not even his career, just his life, that he just wants to be able to step away and enjoy it. You know, he's got Sherry, his longtime partner. She's on and off, had to battle cancer. So, I mean, I can imagine he just wants to be able to enjoy life with her. But I think this is going to be a huge year for him. Does he fall off the face of the earth in terms of performance? I don't know. How do you guys feel about that in terms of Truex?
I think he'll stay pretty consistent.
Well, he's been sloppy so far this year.
Right.
You know, he spun himself out in the Clash. He spun himself out on a restart. The road course. Now, you know, these are two road courses, but we've seen Truex as a great road racing driver. So I just don't know how to feel about him. Well, I think this week on the Homestead, our first true oval, we'll get a better taste of how everyone is, projected to go this year.
Yeah, his first
one
2
thing
weeks.
I want to point out. The one thing I want to point out is when we saw Truex dominating, I would say reasonably 2016 to like 2018, maybe even part of the beginning of 2019. A lot of his success primarily came on the intermediate tracks, like the mile and a halves. For one thing, we have less of those now,